talked a little college football, had some rumors about Mendoza potentially committing to Georgia when he was in the transfer portal before last season. Talked a little college baseball. Georgia gets a dub tonight. Miami and UCF, early candidate for Game of the Year. Olympics hockey is in full swing. We're in the quarterfinals round. Team USA and Team Canada get massive overtime victories today. Then, finally, we talk a little college basketball. Boy, oh boy, are we getting close to March, and boy, oh boy, am I pumped the hell up. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Hammy Show, presented by First American Bank and Trust. I'm your host, Hammy Culpepper, and we are here for the Daily Ham. Ladies and gentlemen, it is episode 10. We have reached double digits. Of course, it is the Daily Ham that we bring you every single Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night. And boy, do we have a show for you here tonight. We were just at the Georgia baseball game, kicked it off with a heck of a win, but that's why we're a little late tonight, so forgive me on being tardy. However, I want to remind you about my friends at First American Bank and Trust real quick. It is the best bank in the entire United States of America. That's why it's called First American. It is the bomb diggity because not only did they get the Hammy Show off of the ground, the Hammy Show LLC is now up and moving. We're taking this thing to the moon, but they are also the presenting sponsor of the Hammy Show. So if you're looking to open up an account, business, personal, whatever it is, check out First American Bank and Trust, my friends. All right, so we're going to start in college football. College football not dominated the headlines, but it definitely had a significant rumor drop today that rattled some college football fan bases. And yes, it is none other than the Georgia Bulldogs, because your Heisman winning quarterback, your national champion, the Indiana Hoosiers, their starting quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, a transfer from Cal, 1 year as a Hoosier, came out today in an interview and said he called Kirby Smart to announce or to tell him that he was going to potentially commit to the University of Georgia to play football for his last year of college eligibility. And what happens? The phone call doesn't go through, and he said it was God's sign of telling him that he should sleep on it and reconsider things, and maybe Georgia isn't the destination. So, of course, everybody heard what Mendoza said, and they just thought, what could happen? What could happen? What could have happened if Fernando Mendoza ended up transferring from Cal to the University of Georgia rather than going to Indiana and taking the Hoosiers alongside Curt Cignetti, the head coach, to the national championship? Well, I've got a few varying perspectives on this whole rumor, if you will. It's not even a rumor because it never happened, and doesn't have a potential to happen, but it's just like a hearsay, whatever it is, a narrative that we're following in college football. First of all, everybody was asking, well, what could have happened? What could have happened to the University of Georgia? Would they have been a national champion? Would Fernando Mendoza win a Heisman Trophy? Now, here's my thought. I think, personally, and you can call me crazy, but it's a trial and error type of thing, and it's a trial that we've seen. I think Gunner Stockton still would have gotten the start over Fernando Mendoza. And I say this for a couple of reasons. I see J Bones back in the Instagram live chat agreeing with me, saying he wouldn't have started over Gunner. And I say this for a couple of reasons. First, because we've seen it happen at the University of Georgia in Kirby Smart's tenure as head coach here for the Bulldogs. That is, we had a similar situation. It wasn't the exact same, but you have a guy in Jake Fromm who took you to a national championship. You lost to Alabama. He's a freshman in that year. You have a stint during the season where you're the number one team in the country. You're an SEC championship team. And you get in the next year, 2018, a guy in Justin Fields, who's the number 2 overall recruit in that class, one of the highest profile quarterbacks out of high school we've seen in the history of college football recruiting. That is Justin Fields. But Kirby says, no, I'm sticking with my guy Jake Fromm. My guy Jake Fromm took me to a national championship. He won me an SEC championship, won me a Rose Bowl game, beat some high-quality opponents in a tough SEC schedule that year. Mississippi State, loses to Auburn but gets revenge against them in the SEC championship. A Tennessee team, you beat them 41-0. A Florida team, you beat them 42-7. That is because Jake Fromm is your starting quarterback. So how can you go away from Jake Fromm? So I say it's a similar situation, but it's a little different. Look at Gunner Stockton. What did Gunner Stockton do in his game and a half playing at the University of Georgia when Carson Beck went down in 2024? He wins Georgia an SEC championship. I think far too many college football fans and maybe even some Georgia fans don't really remember Georgia was down. It was only 3 points, but that was a game that was a defensive struggle. And so getting any points, any touchdowns, any field goals was a challenge and a half. Gunner Stockton comes from down 6-3 and takes Georgia to an SEC championship victory over the Texas Longhorns, an eventual semifinal team in 2024. Gunner Stockton filled in and absolutely laid it on the table, stepped up to the plate, answered the bell, and won that game for the Georgia Bulldogs. The team rallied around Gunner Stockton. You go into Notre Dame. It's his first career start as a Georgia Bulldog in his college career. A Sugar Bowl against the eventual national runner-up Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And he gets shut down. So here's how it's similar. Jake Fromm took Georgia to an SEC championship, took Georgia to a national championship. Gunner didn't take him to a national championship, but took him against a team who was the eventual national runner-up. Jake Fromm in that national championship, outside of that touchdown pass 80 yards long to Mecole Hardman, was largely shut down. It was a defensive struggle for the majority of that game. Final score, Alabama wins 26-23 in overtime. Georgia loses to Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl last year 23-10. Gunner Stockton was shut down for the most part. So I think it's a similar situation in the sense that Kirby would have stuck with Gunner if Mendoza would have come, because he had seen what Gunner did as a Georgia quarterback. He had trust in a Georgia-born, Georgia-bred guy, a guy who respected the red and black, wore the G on his chest proudly. And I'm not saying Fernando Mendoza, if he came to the University of Georgia, would have worn it unproudly. No, he would have worn it proudly. He would have been a great quarterback. But I still think Gunner would have been the guy in Athens. I think Mendoza would have sat behind Gunner for a year. Personal opinion, I just think we've seen this before. And we saw it with Jake Fromm getting the start over Justin Fields. Justin Fields eventually transfers away from Georgia, goes to Ohio State, takes Ohio State to a national championship as a Heisman finalist. He's drafted to the NFL, still playing in the NFL. He's obviously had a terrible career in the NFL, but definitely maybe when you look back on it, the more athletic, the more gifted quarterback. Is Mendoza that over Gunner Stockton? Maybe, potentially, yeah. I don't know. But here's the question that nobody's really asking. And this is the question that I think is far more important. So you have Gunner Stockton this year. He wins you an SEC championship for the second year in a row. He takes you to the college football playoff for the second year in a row. He loses in the the quarterfinal round of the college football playoff for the second year in a row. But you get Gunner Stockton back for the 2025 season. So here's my question. Are you willing to put all your chips in the middle of the table on Mendoza for a year to win you a national championship, to win you a Heisman if you really care about the Heisman Trophy and that individual award? Or do you take the gamble on Gunner Stockton? You get an SEC championship out of him in his first full year starting at quarterback, and you get a college football playoff berth, and then you potentially get a second year where you can win a national championship. I am taking the guy who has been in the Georgia system, understands Mike Bobo, and you get him for 2 years. Yes, Fernando Mendoza was a Heisman-winning quarterback. Yes, he's a national champion. Yes, the year that Indiana had is unprecedented success, 16-0 from a program that is statistically the worst Power 4 program in college football history. And you turn it around in 2 years, and it's largely in part to Fernando Mendoza. That's great. You get a year of that. But Gunner Stockton was a top-tiered quarterback in college football this year. So I'm taking an SEC championship, a college football playoff berth in his first year as a starter, and a potential second year where you get hopefully equal success, even more success That potential is there with Gunner Stockton. So that's just my personal preference. Nobody I felt like was asking that question. It's like, oh, what could have been with Fernando Mendoza in that 1 year you have with him at the University of Georgia? Yeah, it could have been great. And I'm not saying I don't want a national championship every single year, but if you're trying to build sustained success, which we've seen Kirby Smart do, then I'm taking the guy that's going to be in your system or has been in your system and going to continue to be in your system for another year to come, where you have a potential to win another national championship. And you've got guys underneath him who are willing to sit and willing to wait and willing to have that opportunity come once they've learned under Gunner Stockton a little bit. That's just my personal preference. So we're 10 minutes in and we just talked about Gunner Stockton and Fernando Mendoza, but insane stuff. All right, we got to pause real quick. The dog's barking. Let's talk a little college baseball. We were just at the Georgia USC Upstate game. We went in and then we went out. And we went to a little Kudzu Hill action. Got some good content from up there coming for you all night long. And we got Georgia baseball again this Friday, a series against Samford. But we're going there Friday. Then we're going to Georgia Tech on Saturday and NASCAR on Sunday. So we've got a heck of a weekend for the Hammy Show on the road, brought to you by Subaru. Hughes Subaru of Athens is the powering sponsor of the Hammy Show on the road. And man, oh man, it is the best dealership in all of America. I drive a 2019 Subaru Outback. And ladies and gentlemen, it is absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. Those four wheels have gotten me all across the country to follow any and all sports, and we are hitting the road once again to follow some college baseball and a little NASCAR action come Sunday at Atlanta Motor Speedway. So, continuing some college baseball conversations, Georgia just won 12-6. Kenny Ishikawa, Georgia's star transfer, two-way player, all-time utility player, second-team preseason All-American for the utility player position. He goes down, getting hit by a pitch, leaves the game early. I'm assuming it is just a little bone bruise, and he'll be right back to healthy. But why do you not want to? Why do you want to play a guy like that, a superstar like that, in a midweek non-conference matchup? Save him, get him healthy, and Georgia baseball will keep it rolling. So we'll be there on Friday as the Dogs take on Samford at Foley Field. But I want to talk about Miami and UCF. Game of the year early candidate happened last night. Miami gets a massive win over UCF. Miami is the 23rd ranked team in the country as we speak. They get an 8-7 win in 13 innings. And ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't watch, if you didn't tune in, this game was absolutely electric. It was all time. Daniel Cuvée is one of the biggest hitters in all of college baseball. He knocks a home run in the bottom of the 12th to keep Miami in the game, ties it back up at 6. Then UCF in the top of the 13th. They take a 7-6 lead. However, just as all hope seems lost, as Miami seems that they're going to fall to UCF, an in-state foe, Vance Shahan hits a 2-run homer, walk-off style, to give the Hurricanes a win in the bottom of the 13th. Absolute electricity coming from Coral Gables last night. Daniel Cuvée, guys, he is a Golden Spike sleeper. I love this dude. We talked about it on our college baseball season preview. Jack DeLongchamps and me, Pencil Talk, that is. We mentioned Daniel Cuvée, and I think he's probably in that 10 to 15 range in the odds to win the award. But, dude, he can rake homers. One of the biggest sticks in all of college baseball. I am excited to watch Daniel Cuvée throughout the rest of the year. Miami with a huge 8-7 win last night and an early candidate for the game of the year in college baseball. Okay, Olympics. Olympics have swept the entire globe. This Winter Olympics has been awesome. I don't know how many of you have been following it too intently, but I have thoroughly enjoyed these Olympics, all sports, but the headline of them all has to be hockey. Team Canada is the favorite to win gold with a close second in the United States of America. If the United States of America does claim gold, it will be the first time since Lake Placid, when the Miracle on Ice happened in 1980, with Herb Brooks as the head coach and a bunch of college hockey players from Minnesota and Boston. Those dudes Those dudes were the last to get a gold medal, and this United States of America team has the chance to do so for the first time since. The United States of America defeats Sweden today 2-1 in overtime in the quarterfinal round. As we get toward the medal rounds, it is getting so tight because the United States of America gets a 2-1 overtime victory thanks to a Quinn Hughes game winner in OT. But then you go to Canada, the favorites to win it all. They have to go to overtime against Czech Republic. Czech Republic is playing with house money today. They were just a dog backed into a corner with nothing to lose, and that's a scary dog to confront. Czech Republic gets all the way up 3-2 with 4 minutes remaining in the third period. And they say, not so fast. Canada, that is, says not so fast. They tie it up with 4 minutes left in the third period. And then in overtime, Mitch Marner saves the Canadian team with a game winner less than 2 minutes into overtime. So awesome stuff from the hockey front out of the Winter Olympics this afternoon. It was absolute electricity, and we're teeing it up for it to be a Canada, United States of America gold medal match. But ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if either one of these teams can make it out of the semis. The United States faces Slovakia, who looked the best in the quarterfinal round. They take down Germany yesterday, 6-2. And Canada faces, who do they face? This is going to be fun. Canada faces Finland in the semis. So both of these teams really, really struggled today and come out with overtime victories. So we shall see what happens in these medal rounds of the Olympics. It's going to be fun stuff to follow. Bless me. So we got a little college basketball to talk to. We're going to talk a bet of the day. We're a little late to the punch for this afternoon, so we're going to give you something for tomorrow to keep an eye on. But let's talk some college basketball. Georgia gets right against Kentucky in the game of the night last night. We had Michigan absolutely throttle number 7 Purdue. The Wolverines are the number 1 team in the country, and I picked last night on our bet of the day Purdue to upset Michigan. Had them plus 1.5 at home against the Wolverines, the number 1 team in all the land. But Michigan comes out and absolutely controls this game from start to finish. 91-80 is your final score. The Wolverines get a statement win over the Purdue Boilermakers. Michigan is looking hot. They are looking good. They are looking like the bar none number 1 team in the country. But like I said, the game of the night has to be Georgia-Kentucky in a back and forth bout. This one, the Dogs get right and take down the comeback Cats. Georgia was down early in the game, comes all the way back, go into the locker room at halftime up 5, 39-34. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're a Georgia fan, you know that is scary territory. Mike White and his Georgia Bulldogs have seemingly been the worst second half team, the worst halftime adjustments team in all of college basketball. So many games Georgia has come in to the locker room at the half with a lead. No matter how big or how small, it seemingly always slips away for the Georgia Bulldogs. But Georgia never relinquishes that lead. They hold on to the victory for an 86-78 win. Georgia is right back on track for a tournament run. After a 5 out of 6 losing game skid, it was abysmal basketball from Georgia. But Jeremiah Wilkinson returns for Georgia, and boy, is he a spark plug for this team. Gets 19 off of the bench. Blue Cane leads all scorers with 20. And Georgia, hey, never die dogs. Never say die dogs. I'm loving it from this Georgia basketball team. Another team you got to look at is Florida. They are the hottest team in the country, in my opinion. They have fully hit form, and they are outstanding. The Gators are back to national championship form. They have been on the incline since a rough start, a 5-4 start to their season, but boy, have they been ascending throughout the season. They're coming together as a team. They are playing as a unit. Coach Golden has those Gators rolling, and boy, did they roll last night. South Carolina goes to Florida and gets absolutely walloped by the Gators. 76-62 is your final score. Florida controls this game from start to finish, much like Michigan controlled Purdue. It is astounding to read you off these stats real quick. They're the hottest team in the country, and here's why. It's not a one-man show. It is not at all. Thomas Howell, the best player on that Florida team, small forward, averaging 17.2 points per game, leads the Gators. Then Ruben Chinyelu is leading the team in rebounds with 12 rebounds per game. Xavier Lee, the point guard, leading the team in assists per game at 3.6. Boogie Flan leading the team in steals per game with 2. And Alex Condon leading the team in blocks per game. So their starting 5 are leading each major category for what you would call that specific position where they should be leading. The point guard leading in assists, the small forward leading in scoring, your center leading in rebounds, your power forward leading in rebounds, your center, Alex Condon, leading the blocks, Xavier Lee leading in assists per game, Boogie Flan, another guard leading in steals per game. This team is just so well-rounded. They are insane. They are, I think, the hottest team in basketball. I think they are Final Four bound. I would not be surprised if the Gators repeat as national champions. Golden has these boys absolutely rolling. Cade Black, 874, says, Hammy, Florida deserves praise for everything, for anything. They do. They do. This basketball team is the best team in the country as we speak. I think they could beat anybody they faced on a hardwood floor. NC State, the final game that I want to talk about, they absolutely trample North Carolina. North Carolina is, of course, missing Caleb Wilson, their superstar freshman, who is breaking all sorts of records. All of those records that were previously set by a Michael Jordan, Caleb Wilson has just astonishingly shoved those down the drain. 19.8 points per game, 9.4 rebounds per game, 1.5 assists per game, and 1.4 blocks per game. It's nuts. It is absolutely nuts what Caleb Wilson is doing. Your bet of the day today, though, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to the NBA. We're going to the NBA. We're a little behind, so we're missing a lot of these tip-offs. So we're going to the NBA tomorrow. Rockets take on Charlotte. The Hornets, they are -2.5 in Charlotte. I think the Rockets get a massive dub here, despite all of the Kevin Durant burner Twitter drama. I think the Rockets get a big-time W over the Hornets. In other news, off of the floor, LaMelo Ball gets in a terrible wreck in Charlotte, North Carolina today, blazes through a red light in his custom-made Hummer and absolutely wrecks an Audi in the intersection, loses his front left tire, his driver's side tire. It was kind of a scary wreck, but I'm glad everybody's okay, but do we really feel bad for LaMelo Ball because he got out of the car, talked to the police, and hopped in a Lamborghini to leave the scene? I don't really feel bad for LaMelo Ball losing the front tire on his custom-made Hummer. So your bet of the day, ladies and gentlemen, Rockets -2.5 over the Hornets tomorrow night. That is Thursday. All right, guys, I talked about it a little bit. We've got a huge weekend coming from the Hammy Show on the road, presented by Subaru, Hughes Subaru of Athens. We are going to Georgia baseball on Friday as the Dogs take on Sanford. Then we are traveling over to Atlanta, right down I-85, about 70 miles away, for a little Georgia Tech baseball action as the Yellow Jackets take on Stony Brook. And finally, on Sunday, we're capping off the weekend with an exquisite experience, an all-time experience, one of the greatest people-watching events in all of human history. That is a NASCAR race at Atlanta Motor Speedway. The Auto Trader 400, the Hammy Show on the road, will be there. So stay tuned. A few other announcements. We had an amazing interview with Drake Bernstein, a national champion head coach of the Georgia women's tennis team. It published this morning on YouTube. We're releasing clips all across our social platforms. So give that a listen. Give it a watch on YouTube. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, everything you can imagine. Wherever you get your listening, your podcast on any listening platform, The Hammy Show is there, ladies and gentlemen. Finally, I want to say, give us a follow here on Instagram at @_Hammy Show, on TikTok at The Hammy Show, no underscore there. We're going to get into some mailbags before I make these last few announcements. Our final sponsorship of the night is the Vinyl Frontier. It is the best record store in all of America. I keep telling you, people, it is all about the experience. So if you're in Carrollton, Georgia, stop by the town square, pop into the Vinyl Frontier, put you a little vinyl on the 8-track, listen to some tunes, talk to the guys behind the desk, figure out what your favorite type of music is, who your favorite artist is. and then you can buy that record. But if you can't make it to Carrollton, visit thevinylfrontier.com, and you can find any record on vinyl in the entire universe just from the Vinyl Frontier, the best record store in all of America. All right, let's get into the mailbag. I know we've got a few comments here. Will Jaden Wade reclassify? I believe he will. Cade Black 874. Cade Black also said Florida deserves everything, talking about that basketball team. I wholeheartedly agree. Hammy, also, what is your take on Kaman Spell canceling all his other visits and encouraging other players to commit to Georgia? I have rang this bell from the tip-tops towers of the world, from the highest hilltops in all of Athens, Georgia. I do not trust a recruit, a 17 to 18-year-old recruit, to come to a school in this day and age of college athletics until I see him either suited up in the spring game in red and black with a G on his chest or whatever school he chooses, or if we don't have spring games, I don't trust that he will be playing for the University of Georgia or any other school until he suits up on kickoff, opening day. That is my take on recruits. I just think this day and age of college football, when anybody and everybody, hell, even professional athletes can come back to college and play, who knows where they will end up. So I can't trust any of these 17 to 18-year-olds, whether or not they will be in Athens, whether or not they will be in whatever. I don't know. It is so complicated to understand the mind of a 17 to 18-year-old recruit who is getting millions of dollars thrown at him. However, I guess you could say it is encouraging to hear that Kaman Spell is canceling all other visits and encouraging other players to come to the University of Georgia. However, we've seen this story before. Think back to Dylan Raiola. Dylan Raiola transfers to Buford. Transfers from way out west to the state of Georgia, one of the best high school football programs in the state of Georgia, just to get some of those other Buford guys like a KJ Bolden to come to Georgia with him. Then what does he do? He goes and commits to Nebraska. And now he's back in the transfer portal and he's on his way to Eugene, Oregon. You can't trust these dudes. I don't trust any of them until they are suited up in their respective school colors. All right. I don't know if we had any more comments here on TikTok. Let's see. All dog, what up, Hammy? How about them hoop dogs last night? We talked about it a little bit. I know you're probably replying when I was talking about it then, but man, that was good stuff, wasn't it? A huge win for the Georgia Bulldogs. All right, one last swipe through Instagram to see if we got anything else. Yo, from Trey Stanford. What's up, Trey Stanford? I love the profile pic, man. All right. I think that does it for us here, guys. What a show. Sorry we had a little pause in between. We had some unexpected guests roll by the Ham Cave, but we talked a little college football, had some rumors about Mendoza potentially committing to Georgia when he was in the transfer portal before last season. Talked a little college baseball. Georgia gets a dub tonight. Miami and UCF, early candidate for Game of the Year. Olympics hockey is in full swing. We're in the quarterfinals round. Team USA and Team Canada get massive overtime victories today. Then, finally, we talk a little college basketball. Boy, oh boy, are we getting close to March, and boy, oh boy, am I pumped the hell up for some college basketball. Hoops are in full swing, ladies and gentlemen, so stay tuned. Right here on the Hammy Show, because we're bringing you constant college basketball coverage. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Hammy Show, presented by First American Bank and Trust. This is episode 10. We're in double digits of the Daily Ham here on this beautiful February 18th, 2026. I am your host, Hammy Culpepper. We are presented by First American Bank and Trust. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, remember, ham it up.